This is the city of Chennai, capital of the state of Tamil Nadu in southern India, formerly known as Madras. It was here in September 1986, in temperatures that hovered around 40 degrees Celsius and 80% humidity, that one of the most remarkable cricket matches in the history of the game was played between India and Australia.
Now it's all up to Shastri. The gallery is in absolute rapture.
This is a story of extreme physical endurance.
Because I was cramping that much and I just couldn't release, I was screaming to high hell.
It is also a story about pride and passion.
Hey, you guys think this is one-day cricket or what? This is test cricket. We are facing follow-on, blah, blah, blah. All of us just got blasted.
There were angry on-field confrontations between players.
I'm going to stick this bat where the sun don't shine, and he bent over and said, well, do it.
And heated arguments with umpires.
I'm telling you, calm down. Don't talk to me like this. I'm telling you.
Oh, you can't send me off. Then I thought to myself, well, maybe you can.
Then, to top it all, for only the second time in the history of Test cricket, it ended in a tie.
It's a tie. The match has ended in a tie. It's an unbelievable result.
Ryder leads his Australian part in the unofficial test which they won against an Indian 11 at Bombay.
Prior to the 1980s, contact between India and Australia in cricket terms had been rather sparse. The first tour by any Australian side to India was in 1935-36, when a team comprised of some first-class and retired Test cricketers made an unofficial visit under the patronage of the Maharaja of Patiala.
Ryder, the Aussie skipper, plays the Indian bowling with great confidence and knocks off a century on the first day, but he finds that the garland awarded him cramps his style.
It was Richie Benaud who led an Australian side on the first full official tour of India and Pakistan in 1959-60 in what was an arduous 3-month campaign.
There was quite a deal of illness to the players and sickness, quite serious illness. Gordon Rourke, Gavin Stevens, Lindsay Klein suffered from hepatitis. Gavin Stevens didn't play first-class cricket again.
Tours of the subcontinent were not relished by Australian cricketers during the 1950s and 60s because of the difficult conditions. Although Bill Laurie's 1969 tour turned out to be a success on the field, it was marred by a host of off-field problems, crowd disturbances and riots.
They were tough tours because of poor accommodation, because of uncertainty with the food, uncertainty with hydration, a lack of education from the Australian authorities about how to tackle a tour of India and Pakistan.
Then in 1979, Kim Hughes led an inexperienced Australian side on another full tour of India.
That's a good shot from Hughes. That's through. Penalty 4.
We were a very young cricket side. It was during the World Series cricket revolution. And so there's a lot of big names missing from the Australian team. And the only one who seemed to flourish over there was Kim Hughes, because he ate everything and ate all the local food, you know, the curries, etc. And he flourished. I think he put on weight. All the rest of us were eating naan bread and bananas, and we struggled with our weight. And but I think everyone got different bouts of Delhi belly at different stages on that tour. I think it's just unavoidable as, you know, Westerners going to that sort of culture.
By the time Australia embarked on their next tour of India in 1986, Alan Border was the captain of the Australian team.
The crowds can be a bit boisterous, but you know, as long as you go in there expecting a hard time and not take things too easily, we should do reasonably well.
The mid-1980s was a low point in Australian cricket. Reeling from the defection of 16 players to rebel tours of apartheid South Africa, Australia had won only 3 of its last 25 Test matches and had not won a Test series for nearly 3 years.
And so to 1986, where again there's a crisis, and again there's Bob Simpson digging in deep for Australian cricket.
I think the point missing at present is there's not quite the number of senior players around who had vast experience to pass on their knowledge. I think that's missing.
Former Australian Test captain Bob Simpson was brought in as cricket manager. His mission? To help Alan Border rebuild the Australian Test team.
It was a bit like a jigsaw puzzle. We set aside a group of 5 players who we thought had the attitude and the nous and the stubbornness to be, fine Test cricketers. One, of course, is Alan Border, Craig McDermott, David Boone, Jeff Mahush and Steve Waugh. And they were the first 5 who went into the jigsaw puzzle.
Myself as captain and Bob Simpson as coach, we felt that we were starting to develop a good nucleus. So going to that tour of India, we had high expectations that we could hold our own.
The first Test match of the 1986 series was played in Madras at the Chidambaram Stadium, at the very time of the year when the hot and humid conditions were at their worst.
It was the beginning of the northeast monsoon season. It's never easy to play cricket in India at any time of the year, but this particular time in the south of India is very confronting for athletes. The conditions are incredibly enervating, and they take a very big toll on the players, not only on their bodies but on their minds as well. Very tough conditions.
We hopped off the plane and we had to walk across the tarmac, midnight, and our shoes, well, we could smell the rubber burning off the tarmac. We just couldn't believe how hot it is, because we hear all the old blokes talking about it. But you don't really actually know how hard it is until you get there.
It was so humid and sapping and draining, and training sessions were intense because we were training much longer than the Indians, so they thought we were pretty crazy. They thought we'd left all our energy on the practice park. But that was our new attitude, that we believe we had to train hard to improve, and we just got on with the job.
What I remember is that we had just come back from a very successful tour of England. We'd beaten England 2-0. We should have maybe won the 3-0.
The best thing for Indian cricket at that time was that, we had Kapil Dev, our captain, who was very, very positive. He would rather lose, than go for a draw. So he would put that, in everybody's mind. He would have us in a positive frame of mind all the time, that you got to win a test match.
I think perhaps my style of cricket was different than Indian, what used to play at that time. We, all Indian, was very subdued cricketer. I think I was come out so aggressive suddenly.
His only mission was to make sure that he instills this thing in the boys, that you've got to be positive, you've got to beat this Australian side, and if you beat this Australian side, I think we'll be number 1 in the world.
We knew we were gelling together as a good side, and part of the 86-87 season was building up towards the World Cup in India the following year.
This Madras Test marked a remarkable milestone for the Indian batting maestro, Sunil Gavaskar. It was his 100th consecutive Test match for India.
For somebody who didn't take the kind of training that the others did as seriously, I think it was something to play 100 consecutive Test matches without really having any sort of niggles like a pulled muscle and all that. And I would always joke with the guys, look, you guys do all this 20 laps of the ground stuff, and I do maybe just 2 laps of the ground, and maybe that's the reason my muscles are okay, while yours get too stiff.
Australia almost went into this Test match minus one of its key spin bowlers.
Well, I unfortunately had a pizza the night before the game. 3 hours after I'd eaten my pizza, I thought my world was going to end. So I did go into the match a little bit ill, and that probably stayed with me for a lot of the game.
With temperatures around 40 degrees Celsius and 80% humidity forecast for the next 5 days, the toss was all important.
If we had lost the toss, I still don't know whether I would have got on the park. But the toss went up, and Liz had come in and suggested that we were batting, so I immediately fell back on the couch I was on, or the table I was on, and proceeded to spend the day there, of course.
I don't think I've ever seen or played in a Test match where the conditions over 5 days were so appalling as that Madras Test match. It was terrible. The humidity was bad.